All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, Our New Narrative. And today is June the 4th. This is Andre, and I got my man Leo back with me, and we're going to talk about a few things. But first, I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe if you feel you get something out of this content. Um, Warning, spoiler alert. Um, no, we don't intend to offend for sure, but we're going to touch on some pretty sensitive topics.
That's
But
that slogan you just came up with. We don't intend to offend. That's
okay,
trademark. Y'all can't
trademark.
steal
All
it.
right. Okay. Um, but if you get offended, I just suggest, go in the corner, count to 10, come back, and just
Read
listen
some
to the
more.
content. Yeah, just listen to the content. Iron sharpens iron. If you got anything to say it nicely in the comments. Um, but yeah, so with that said, today we're going to talk about um, qualifications for race hustlers and the verdict, not the verdict, jeez, the charges that have been placed upon the cop who killed Mr. George Floyd. So we're going to go with George Floyd first. So initially, the cop who killed Mr. Floyd was charged with third-degree murder. And in my opinion, that was a virtual slam dunk. Like I just said earlier, that's like, for those who don't know, like Manute Bol, 7'7" or 7'6". That's like asking him to dunk a ball 2 feet away from the basket. But when you up the charges to second degree murder, you have to prove intent. Now, I don't know why exactly that decision was made by the AG. I believe his name is Mr. Ellison. I heard that they wanted to be able to inflict a harsher punishment on him, but that to me is like, was it leading the horse before the cart or something like that? You got to convict the guy first. So when you're trying to prove intent, that's a lot that's more difficult than just saying like he was negligent, which I believe that third degree murder is more in lines of criminal negligence than um, like first degree or second degree murder with the intent to kill. Yeah, so what we were talking about before we started recording is, why would you take that risk? Why would an AG take the risk of having these guys acquitted? Because all you need is one person on that jury to say, you know what, as I'm looking at this guy with his foot on his neck, and other cops asking, hey, should you turn this guy over? And he's got his hand in his pocket, you know, no, I guess he'll be okay or whatever. It just takes 1 out of 12 to say, I don't think he intended to kill him. What do you think, Leo?
Well, at that particular moment, because you brought up, I guess, a rephrasing of what he actually said. What he said was he likes it down here. I'm like, he said that, and you recording him say he likes it down here. It's kind of like leaning towards. You make a great valid point with the JD. That's doctors for you people that don't understand Latin. Not to demean anybody, but that means that's a doctor of law understands these things. And I think when you go from that basis, you try and approach things from a
Man, it's this
down
bandwidth
here.
problem
It
again.
Yeah, it kind of goes to he knew what he was doing, kind of in there somewhere. Uh,
Well, it's a little back up a little bit, Leo. It's a back up. Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit, in my opinion. And like I learned the first day in law school, the only opinion that matters is the one that has the honorable.
The honorable, you told me that. You told me that
Line
right there.
is,
And I
you
didn't
know,
forget it. Just to let you know, the only opinion that matters is
yeah.
the one whose name has the honorable in front of it.
So
So,
if you're a judge, your opinion matters. But that's the difference to me between the third degree and the second degree. And the third degree, knowing like you're putting him in harm's way is one thing. Intending to kill him is another thing. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't intend to kill him. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, oh, you get 12 people who look at this video of this guy, and 12 people will all come to the same conclusion that he intended to kill him. I'm not debating that. What I'm debating is you had a guaranteed slam dunk conviction of this guy who killed George. You're gonna get the conviction on third degree, and you can. I don't know what the maximum penalty is, so I'm sorry if I find out later. Somebody can put in the comments that
it's 40, Dre. What they say, this is just media reports. It's 40 on down, 40 years
40 years for third degree murder. You get 40 years.
on down. Yeah, that's what they were saying.
He
Well,
coming
I'm
out at
saying
what,
when they
80?
bumped it up second, it was 40
It's
on
like,
down.
oh, so if for third degree it might be like as little as 10 or
Less. Yeah, but they definitely, according to what I read, it's 40 on down for second. They didn't describe what, you know, third was, but for
third
second
one.
degree
Okay,
murder,
so
it's
for
40
third
on down.
degree it'll be less than 40 years.
Right. 40 years, yeah.
Well, my thing is you got to convict them before you give them 40 years. That's just
And most people don't think that like that, because when you said it, I was like, that's true, because sentencing comes later, because
yeah,
the judge actually has to agree with that,
yeah,
unless there's a mandatory minimum, right? So,
right. So I don't get the AG's reasoning behind that. He doesn't owe me an explanation. He owes the family and the city. The
but
city.
I could offer you one,
Okay.
which is the family. You just said it though. The family, that political pressure to do something above and beyond maybe what is reasonable, because I see it as, you know, that political pressure could maybe make him make a decision to take something to a higher level, because the family felt, and they've already broadcast that, and that's the media getting involved in this whole thing now, and now it's politics versus justice.
Right.
They bumped it up to second, and all the other officers, the other three officers, they get drug into it because they tether the accomplice, they tether them together to the first
Mm-hmm.
guy, Chauvin, as the main guy. They tether those three to him as far as sentencing goes, so they can actually, according to what they're saying in Minnesota law, get the same sentence that he gets.
They can get the same sentence, right? And that's the thing. It's like pulling the horse before the cart. Like you got to convict them first. So when you throw in intent and you consider you got 12 people on the jury, right? All you need is one person to say, I don't know.
Nah,
But
yeah.
here's the thing that, like, because they don't, when you get your jury instructions, they don't say, okay, here's your instructions, and the prosecution has to meet these elements to make a prima facie case of second degree murder. And one of those variables is the variable of intent. Now, when they send them into the jury room, they're not saying, okay, here's these, elements that the prosecution has to meet. Go in there and let us know how you feel about it. Now, you watch that case, you watch the video, everybody feels mortified, horrified, and pissed off, and rightly so. But that's why we have a legal system, so that people just don't get drug out and hung in the street legally, right? Now, people may get hung in the street, and that's illegal. But you can't, that's my thing with, I don't know, maybe it was a way, like you said, that to tether the other three to his, the murdering cops sentence, so you can get all 4 of them, I guess, 40 years, right? But you have to convict
Right.
all 4 of them first. So to me, the risk, then you have to ask, is the risk worth the potential reward? Now, for those who haven't thought it through, and some of us have, here's the risk. One person on that jury says, you know what, the prosecute, like one person on that jury says, look, I believe these guys are guilty, but not that he intended to kill him. I believe he's guilty of murder, but he didn't intend to murder him. You just need one person, right?
That reasonable doubt.
Yeah, it's on the prosecution to prove it, and if the prosecution doesn't prove it, and you get one person, all you need is one to say, look, the cop was an asshole, he was stupid, he was too cavalier, he's an evil guy, but I don't think
His name was Chauvin now, chauvinistic. Chauvin.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, you can imply everything. I mean, but with intent, like I said, it's going to be hard to prove, in my opinion, true intent to murder that particular man, right? Unless you find something like that's just over the top, like you got
a Klan uniform,
a Klan uniform, a note in his pocket saying
diary.
Today is the day I'm going out and I'm killing the brother. Like then this is
You got to say it like Dave Chappelle. I'm gonna you mother. That's Dave. Remember, it's Dave Chappelle and. See, we joke about this often, right. Y'all. Breaking this up a little. It's Dave Chappelle and Denzel with that MF word.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill that. And then Denzel with you shot me in my. Yeah, that is all in there. It's like, does somebody go out with anger to try and do something malicious toward another human being that resulted in a death, right?
Intentionally doing it. That's the word you gotta focus on. There's intent. You can be stupid. You can be negligent, and I believe that was the 3rd degree. Like he should have known that placing his knee on this dude's neck for minutes on end, and he has his fellow police officers saying, "Look, dude, I don't think this is safe." Blah blah blah. Right?
Or at least one police officer, but he's got two, one on his lower back and then one on his legs.
Right.
Because we don't get they didn't show that angle enough.
Right.
But it has been shown. It was him on the neck, one guy on the lower back, and then somebody on his legs. But then there was one officer that wasn't, in contact with that whole restraint situation. Right. Maybe ask that question. So.
And it's the thing, you would say, well, they should have known that this was dangerous. They should have known that this could possibly kill someone. And then here's the thing. If the defense comes up with witnesses that said, or witnesses or testimony or video or whatever with this same guy with his knee on the neck of like 5 other people that survived.
It's a wrap, yeah.
You throw intent out the window like he did 5 times before.
But genuinely, that's not going to happen, though. I mean, it could happen. You're saying, I understand.
I'm saying if it happened. I'm just saying, if there's some people out there if there's evidence that cops put knees on neck and that person survived, right? Like if this particular cop put his knee on, that was his MO. He just did it all the time. Let's say that just happened. He did it all the time, right? He's a horrible cop. He's been written up like 18 times, right? Or whatever. And one of his MOs was when he got people on the ground, he put his knee on their neck and none of them died, right? The defense, again, for y'all who just tuning in, I am in no way, neither one of us are in no way saying this guy was justified in doing what he was doing.
Especially me.
Yeah, period.
To say that
what
with
I'm
that
saying is
messed up accent. Yeah, no, not me. Especially me.
What I'm saying is, if you come up with some other people where he put his knee on the neck, or you get some other cops or whatever that says, whatever, that this
we've done it before,
and the person survived, then that kind of blows away your intent part of the second-degree murder charge. And if you don't have intent, you can't convict. Now, here's the risk of not convicting this guy. If you think the riots that we just had post-protest, right? Oh, we got these protests. Everybody's doing the right thing. We got our brothers, white brothers and sisters, Asians. I mean, everybody is locked arm in arm, kneeling, hands up, don't shoot. I mean, it's a beautiful thing until the sun go down, right? And then that's when I guess all of the peace and love people go home, and all the riotous vampires, the anti-capitalists come out and start messing up stuff. If you think they were mad this weekend or today, yesterday, it's
it's gonna be really bad after
nothing nice, man. Nothing nice. It's gonna be nothing nice, man.
Especially if they're calling for example, on social media, we won't say what areas, but to have a mass like flash mob situation as far as
residential neighborhoods.
To a residential neighborhood. And that happened in the major, because LA is the second largest city, but San Fran has a lot of suburbs around there. But if that makes any Twitter news for people to come out and create mass, casualty mayhem, that's not the right way to go. And I see where you're going with that argument, because if you're using I guess this whole movement that's positive to bring light upon, I guess, police brutality and social injustice. But then, like you said, at night, it turns into rhyming and stealing like the Beastie Boys. Some of y'all might be too old for that, but they rhyme. They rhyming and stealing, rhyming and stealing. They crashing. Remember that record cover, Drake, where they had the 747 was crashing into the ground? It was the worst record cover, but somehow the most beautiful record cover in music history, because the 747 on the Beastie Boys album, it crash is like straight down, man. It was terrible, but it expressed a lot. So if you got people coming out to an affluent area for ulterior reasons, we got a problem, Houston. It's a problem. That's
and I'm saying, like, is the risk of having that happen, solely on that AG. And I think, man, I don't know, man. I just hope that doesn't come to fruition. But let me just clarify something what Leo said. There was on Twitter several small towns that were targeted basically by protesters, Antifa, for them to potentially go in to the neighborhoods and do this rioting and looting. I don't know of any neighborhoods that's happened that has happened to yet, but I mean, it's just I think a warning, right? And these guys, the whole world is marching arm in arm, basically for a change in perceived racial injustice, especially at the hands of police departments, right? You got all this goodwill toward the black community, man. And I just don't want anybody hijacking that, which is happening. I mean, these anti,
and that's the point that we really need to hit home on. Like you said, don't hijack a good thing for ulterior reason. And that's what could possibly happen, and that's what has kind of happened.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. I mean, you see all these videos of these Antifa people going out and starting, throwing bricks and hitting cops. Like, you'll have the people kneeling.
Who's delivering bricks to the middle of the street, bro? Pallets of bricks.
Come on, man. This ain't got nothing to do with my man George Floyd, man. Like, come on, man.
Social justice.
Nothing. It's just anarchy, destroying property. And here's the thing, man. Like we were talking about earlier, you had, I don't know where it was. I think it was out here in California. where they arrested my man for windsurfing by himself because of the corona lockdown.
Stop.
And you
They didn't
had,
arrest nobody. Stop
hey,
telling tale.
hey man,
For
and they
windsurfing?
arrested, yeah, and they arrested and sent your girl, the barbershop, I mean the hairstylist that was Texas, right? They sent her to jail.
Yeah, it was Texas.
They sent her
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
jail,
remember
dude.
that.
Like
Yeah.
she was
In Dallas.
face mask and hand cleaning. She gotta feed her kids, right? And they're like, nah, you on lockdown, you on punishment with everybody else, right? So go to your room. But her room was the jail. But fortunately she got out. Now you get this situation with George and everybody's pissed off, rightly so. And apparently, Corona got put on pause. And
For real, like for 9 straight days, didn't it? It's like,
yeah, there ain't no
in
such
my
thing
opinion,
as,
it's a plague out there.
you know,
It's Z World. It's
yep.
The Walking Dead season 99 out there.
Right.
In my head, like if you could look in my head, you want to get out of my head real quick. But I'm like, it's bad out there.
It's bad,
and
man.
they just is under the rug.
Man, they like forget that. We going out and protesting, and that's not the bad thing, because you can protest technically, you could protest, wear your mask, stay relatively far apart, and it should be all good. But then when you got these and I'm gonna keep saying Antifa, and I throw Black Lives Matter in there as well. When you get these people, I'll say Black Lives Matter at this point, in my opinion, and I'm sure people will disagree with me. They are organizing the protest. No one has a problem with that. But I believe, that protest has been infiltrated, and Black Lives Matter and others dealing with these protests haven't done a good job in policing that infiltration. But I digress. When you get the respectable, honorable protest, and then the sun goes down and you got all these people rioting, now you always gonna have some opportunistic people during protests. I mean, I think it's just human nature. You got a whole bunch of people. No one can point you out. It's dark. Hey, somebody just broke the glass at the Nike store. I'm here. I'm gonna run in there and get me some. Is that the right thing to do? No. But it's mob mentality, so it happens. So these Antifa people start igniting that fire, right? So instead of you just having thousands, hundreds of thousands of people protesting with masks on during Corona, some of them go home during the nighttime, and then at night you get these rioters and looters and some opportunistic protesters getting getting pepper sprayed and coughing all over each other. So now, next week, today is June the 4th. Let's see what June the 14th Corona statistics look like, right?
I'm sure it's going to be off the Richter.
It's got to be off the Richter. If Corona was real 2 months ago and everybody had to lock in place and you was locking people up for cutting hair and windsurfing in the ocean by yourself, how are these people not going to be infected with the coronavirus, infecting everybody else? And that's going to lead to a shutdown of the economy again. The businesses that were just barely hanging on as of January 1st, 2020, right? They gone through Corona, the pandemic. They went through Corona lockdown 1. Now they're going to have to go through Corona lockdown 2 after they've been looted. Man, so now these Antifa people are going to cause such destruction to the economy, and I believe that's what they want to do. They're anti-capitalist. I think probably since the Occupy Wall Street movement, they've just given up on capitalism, and they just want to bring the whole system down. They just, as you say all the time, mad in the wrong direction. Ain't capitalism.
And I got mad in the wrong direction. I'm glad you picked up on that. I'm just trying to figure out if they have enough power to actually raise enough mayhem and havoc into in the system to interrupt the way the system works, because it's an engine now.
Yeah.
So if you throw out, one piston or one tire, does that really cripple the whole car? And that's where I kind of wonder. They really aren't, I don't feel that they're really that organized. They're semi-organized, but I don't think they can really interrupt the running of the economy like that. But I think they can do some really disruptive things along the way. And I mean, that's just how I see it. I don't think they can derail the whole thing, but I think they can contribute to the mayhem and the chaos. And like you were saying, they do it under the cover of night. They're not out there among the people that are peacefully protesting. They're doing some stuff on the side under the cover of darkness, and they don't have any inclination uh, to like bettering anything as far as the police brutality thing, because they have their own agenda going
Right.
off on the side.
Yeah, because to me, I don't think these Antifa people care anything about the black community. I think they're purely
Yeah, and I agree with you. They're hijacking the
anti-capitalist.
movement.
They are using the black community as a Trojan horse to get in and cause havoc, and they are doing a very good job. So here you go. And with the help of, we're going to switch over to the next subject, which is related, with the help of what at least I call race hustlers. And I don't know if I need to name names, but I got little names like Big Perm and Big Fro, who
Hey, janky
always,
promoters.
you know, right?
Janky promoters. Remember, I was like, was Ice Cube and them in another movie? Yeah, Ice Cube and Micah, janky promoters.
Yep.
I'm like, we got some janky race hustlers out here.
Yeah,
and guess
man.
who?
And they all
And guess how they look?
and they got a
You're
new one
you're
now.
bleak. But why would you want to go to South Africa? You're bleak. Remember Joe Pesci on that?
Right.
You're bleak.
Yeah. So hey, we're laughing and stuff, and actually, hopefully, we can bring a very touchy, because this is how we talk amongst ourselves, and when we're amongst ourselves, we're not trying to offend anybody just because we're behind closed doors. But I think this stuff needs to be talked about, and I think if you can talk about it in a way to, to just, I guess, look at these subjects a different way or from a different angle, and
You got to relax and be comfortable, because if it's not choking you out, you got to really approach it with, I want to learn something. And if you
Right.
do that, you just relax and learn it. Because my favorite analogy now is actually weird, because I haven't talked to Dre about this, but it's the diet industry. The reason the diet industry sticks around is because no one has discipline to stick to a diet. Ain't nobody getting up and doing the Dwayne the Rock Johnson workout. It's
Right.
discipline. So you may protest now, regardless of whether you disagree with what happened to Mr. Floyd or whether you on Antifa side. Nobody has the discipline to stick with a regimen to learn something and better themselves. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to just keep going and learn a different angle about, what's going on in life, learning about taxes, learning about the environment, just learning about any subject that applies to society. It takes discipline to do that, but
Right.
it's a self-discipline. So a big group kind of mentality might get drowned out, and you have to be careful with messages that run afoul to that actually you'll be alerted to it, because you go, wow, that's really weird. But if you don't have something in you to question why that's weird or not, it'll just go on regularly. This time this year will be this time next year, and you won't question anything.
Yeah.
I like it's great that people out there multiculturally protesting, but it's kind of like on the same thing for me. Well, how about next year? Are you gonna have the same energy when it's next year? Or are you going to be on a different subject? Or are you really going to try to individually understand, based upon what's going on around you, how to better your perspective on what's going on? Or rather, you just protesting for now like a flash mob,
Right.
and don't, it doesn't mean anything this time next year. That's
Right.
my issue with it. Just how do you better yourself as
Right.
an individual, regardless of what a group is doing? I
Right.
think is what I'm saying.
And again, not demeaning people's efforts and protesting. We want to see that as a beautiful thing, where we come together and lock arms uh, for an issue such as this. But I believe what Leo is saying, and what I agree with 100%, is you don't want to just get caught up in this narrative, like just some narrative that, like I always say, like every white person you don't know is racist. That's not
Untrue.
everybody, right?
Right.
But that's
Right.
the
Right.
narrative out there. It's like every white person you don't know is racist or homophobic or misogynistic. If you watch certain mainstream TV shows, that's what you're gonna come away with. And so, I
But that's not what you're saying, Dre. You're
yeah,
saying you would believe that because if you easily believe the narrative, you're gonna believe that narrative.
yeah,
It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite, rather, of that. I
right,
misspoke there. The opposite of that. You don't believe that all people that are different from you are racist. You
right,
don't believe
right,
that all people that are different from you are homophobic. You
right,
just try to go on your day and learn things day by day and progress. And that's it's a philosophy. It's not it's a philosophy. It's a philosophical kind of approach to things. And
yeah,
if you don't have that, you can grow into that, but you got to be careful of people trying to usurp your way of
yeah,
thinking, your ability to think for yourself. And that's what is the danger that's going on right now. They're trying to take over and tell you what to think, and you can't go for that.
right.
That's,
And
I guess, what we're saying.
I'll just share with you and whoever's listening something I discovered, man. It really helped me, man. Before I discovered this, man, I was just like, wow. I was thinking this way, or I was thinking that way according to what I was hearing, and a lot of times what I was hearing was coming from a certain group of people who had an interest in telling me what I wanted to hear. And a lot of times they got financial gain from that, or fame from that, and it wasn't necessarily what I needed to hear, but it was what I wanted to hear. And I read this book, and by the way, that's the thing I wanted to say I discovered. It's this thing, you know, often it comes in various sizes and various shapes. Typically, they're about this big, that wide. Yeah, they're called books, people. You need to read books, right? One of my
You pretty
best
good with
friends,
that one.
one of my best friends said, it's really hard to lie in print, right? And I can go off on this, man. But yeah, you got to read books. And when it comes to issues you're really passionate about, go to the source, especially history, man, because history is often told by the victor, and you gotta have the perspective of both sides to know what you're really talking about, or not even to know what you're talking about, but to understand whatever issue you're talking about in its entire complexity, right? So when it comes to black issues, as far as black people in America are concerned, the people who wrote the history after the Civil War were actually the people who lost the Civil War, right? So that should tell you something, right? That
An inherent bias is
there's an
kind of
inherent
thing.
bias in what you're being told. And what does this have to do with big fro and big perm? Um, I'm gonna get to
That's our
that.
Friday references in there, right?
I'm gonna get to that with this. Now I'm a quote from the book of one of America's national treasures, as far as I'm concerned, the world treasure. I don't know why this guy hasn't received a Nobel Prize yet, but Mr. Thomas Sowell or Sowell.
So well, I knew he was gonna say so well.
Hey man, you gotta give it up to the man. If you guys don't know who this is, just look him up, and just uh, take a chance.
ELL.
Take a chance, man. Read. Read and don't do what so many people do. Oh, I heard that he's all right or whatever. You know, nah, man. Like Norm Chomsky
Read it.
said the other day, I seen it on a YouTube video, and I'm not a huge fan of that guy. Just FYI.
You ain't
I'm
no
just
more.
not.
No,
I'm
come
just.
on,
Hey,
bro.
I'm just not. I'm just not. But he said something I totally agree with. He said, "Hey, there's some things Hitler said that I agree with." And Andre's version of that statement is just because Hitler said it was sunny, that don't mean it was raining. So take a
So
chance, man. Read something. What you know? I get so frustrated when I talk to people and they're like, "I ain't reading that." You know, it's like books are books. They're not going to hypnotize you, right? You know, I've never met anybody who read a book and decided to, you know, now that I read this book, I'm going to go do X. Like they don't, knowledge is empowering. It's not a mind control thing. Now, the mind control comes in when you don't read the book and you got somebody
you
telling you what
believe.
the book says and telling you what to believe the book says, right?
That's a key point.
That's a
Somebody's
cult.
telling you something, you
Yep,
just believe it and
yep,
go with it
yep. That's a
instead
cult.
of read
So
it for yourself and figure it out.
now this is the age of information, which means ignorance is a choice. You got Google everywhere on your phone and computer. You can look up stuff. Now, a lot of stuff in the media and in print has a bias, and I ain't here to say if it leans left or right because it don't matter to me. As long as you get your knowledge on, that's what. But when it comes,
Just don't believe everything
yeah,
somebody's saying,
yeah, when
right?
it comes to history, just know a lot of things that was written about the African American experience leans left because the people who wrote our history lost the Civil War. Now, back to Big Perm and Big Worm. And I'm going to go to my man Thomas Sowell. I don't know, I forgot which book I got this out of from him, but he's got like 47 of those books. But anyway, so here you go.
And you know he's retired now, bro, right? He
Yeah,
retired, right?
and don't we need his voice right now just for some calm, cool, and collection and facts, right? And facts, man. All right, so here you go. Quote, in the most varied conditions in countries around the world. So this is a global perspective. Whether in third world countries or in economically more advanced countries, and whether in countries where the majority or the minority has the higher skills, those seeking either the leadership or the votes of lagging groups tend to offer them four things. Now, if this was Family Feud, there would be four options up there, right? And you can do the survey said, but since this ain't Family Feud, and I'm just being silly, I'll go through 1 through 4. Number 1, these people, and this is a global study here, so this ain't about like Black American experience, so this just happens in America. This is a global. I believe. I know he did it in America. I believe Indonesia, like China, like it was a global study. So these people that I'm calling race hustlers, and I believe he called race hustlers.
Are you talking about Hofstede and the IBM study?
No. This was out of one of his books. I don't recall the book, but I wrote it out in a paper I was doing a long time ago, and I just brought it up. So I quoted it rather in a paper. So number 1, they assure that the lags are not their fault, meaning the groups that these people are representing, these hustlers come in and assure them that whatever they're lacking, however they're lagging behind, is not their fault. 2, there's assurance that their lags are the fault of some advanced group that they already envy or resent. So either or, envy or resent. There's assurance that the lagging group and their culture are just as good as anybody else's, if not better. And 4, there's assurance that what the lagging group needs and deserves is a demographically defined fair share of the economic and other benefits of society, sometimes supplemented with some kind of reparations for past injustices or some special reward for being indigenous sons of the soil. So that might be a little dense, but basically, what I got out of that is these people love to tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And what people like Thomas Sowell was saying to people in general, black community specifically, not necessarily preaching at the black community, but saying, along with what Booker T. Washington was saying, along with what Frederick Douglass was saying, was basically there is self responsibility in the equation, right? You're gonna always have bad actors out there, and it's your responsibility to prepare yourself the best you can to live the best life you can and take advantage of what America has to offer here, which is, this guarantee of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing if there's no self-responsibility in that equation. And when you get like these race hustlers out there who take self-responsibility out of the equation, it just does the community no good. And you get a community of dependent people. Unfortunately, you get a community of a lot of dependent people who see people outside of that community as the reason for their perceived injustices. Now, this is just a general statement. This isn't directed toward the George Floyd incident, but I'm bringing it up because I believe these race hustlers are also inciting this violence, and also influence the AG to up that charge to include intent, right? I truly believe that, because he had a slam dunk conviction, right? But that's not enough, right? And at the end of the day, like you said, justice. It's about justice for this man. And if there's no conviction, that's an injustice, which is going to lead to more rioting, looting, and more of a feeling of despair for the black American community attached to the history of black Americans in this country. And who benefits directly from that? A bunch of race hustlers.
Well, with all that being said, all of that is definitely the truth, and they have been around for quite a while. And I guess without you or anyone calling it any colors, they have been members of the black community. But it's kind of like the example with this one sports journalist. I forgot his name. Whitlock. He was Fox News. It was Fox Sports, actually. Fox Sports. His contract ran out, but he was saying some of the things that Kanye was saying. You remember Kooky Kanye? Everybody, yeah, okay. Well, there were 7 sentences in what Kanye was saying. 5 of them were nutty. 2 of them were actually pretty eloquent. And basically, the sports journalist eloquently said what Kanye was saying months and months before that. Now he's out of a contract on the sports network, Fox Sports, for being outside of the parameters of the discussion. And so, to go along with, to kind of paraphrase what he was saying, he basically stated that black people should be more free agent minded in their political affiliations. And I get that. that is a better statement of what maybe Kanye was saying. You don't have to stay tethered to a political party just because you're black. And
Right.
my problem is the comparison, the comparator to that, maybe British, the English,
Right.
where they have many parties, or put it like this, around the world they have coalitions that must be formed for somebody to have a democratic ruling party in that country.
Right.
We don't have that. We have either chocolate or vanilla.
Right.
There's green beans or corn. You don't have any other party in between that.
Nope.
And you should all. I'm not saying you should as an imperative, but you should think that's suspicious because you only have two parties to choose from, and the two parties might not really be that different from each other. And with that being said, there's a he's an African American sports journalist out of a contract saying the same thing Kanye was saying, but extremely more eloquent than Kanye was saying.
Yeah.
But it's outside of the narrative, and
Right.
people get upset when it's outside of the narrative because it makes you think. And if you have to think, I will admit it is difficult. Stuff you don't already agree with, you have to think a little more and be curious and research outside of that. But we got a guy that was basically too conservative, in essence, what I'm saying. He was too conservative and black for Fox Sports. And he doesn't have a follow on contract after saying, yeah, Kanye was making a little sense, and here's a better verbalization of that. This guy doesn't have a platform, but he was speaking truth, but it was not conventional wisdom, and you get shut out of that. And I don't think that's right. So you have to be individually curious to go and just flesh out what you heard from somebody.
Yeah.
Weapons test anything that I'm saying, weapons test anything Dre is saying. You can go and find this stuff out for yourself. And just, if you're curious enough, you'll learn more just as a human being, just to know more and like figure it out. Like, wow, I was really wrong on that point, but I'm better on this point. Because Muhammad Ali said it best. Any man that is 50 years old that believes the same things that he believed when he was 25 has wasted 25 years of his life.
Exactly.
It's just like you got to progress intellectually. And that's my point, is you just got to go further and think more about what you're faced with. I'd be more curious about what's going on. That's
And we're going to wrap this up a little bit here, but I want to paint a picture for those who are listening, and just bear with me as I think and try and talk this out. Now, I'm going to go back to the Civil War on you, and the North won. Woo! And what had happened was you got all these newly emancipated, right? Former slaves who now had the power of the franchise, man. And I think we really take for granted what that meant, but the Republicans didn't, right? So not only did they win the war, they took advantage, and I don't want to say this in a negative way, but they took advantage of the situation to pass legislation that was definitely Republican friendly with the new black vote, right? Because in 1865, 66, 1870, you would be hard pressed to find a black Democrat in the South. I mean, you talking about lockstep voting. And for good reason, because the Democrats wanted to keep the newly emancipated in chains or put them back in chains or whatnot. So why in the world, with this new power to vote, would you ever vote for a Democrat right after the Civil War, right? So I think it was obvious to the Republican Party that, hey, we can push through a lot of legislation that we would get a lot of pushback on from the Democrats. Now that we got the newly emancipated, they have the power to vote, we can push through a lot of stuff, right? And so that's what they did. And on another episode, I'll touch upon how the original Ku Klux Klan came to be because
that's a whole episode right there for real.
Right. That's yeah. So, but just imagine that you got the newly emancipated in the South, and in the North too, they have the right to vote, and so they're going to vote Republican. Well, they did that, and that just suppressed all type of Democratic legislation. Now, obviously, some of their legislation was anti, you know, Republican, whatever that is. But whatever legislation the Democrats wanted to push through, even if it didn't deal with slavery, man, if the blacks with the power to vote wasn't feeling it, it wasn't getting through. So I'm pretty sure somebody on the Democratic Party figured out that somehow we need to get some of the black vote ourselves. And you see, you know, after the Jim Crow era, well, around the Jim Crow era, when President Woodrow Wilson, kind of, you know, after he kicked all the blacks out of the federal government jobs, he kind of chummed up.
Don't get started about that.
You know,
do not go on that.
he got chummy with W.E.B. Du Bois, the socialist who died communist, to try and get the black folks to come over to the Democratic Party with promises of things like Social Security and stuff like that, which, on the side note, the Democrats didn't want to give, didn't want blacks to get Social Security or whatever. But again, that's another episode. But yeah, and then you get FDR with more government handouts or a social net, social safety net, and you're getting more and more black people to vote for you, and it got to a point where the black vote was 100% Republican. Under Obama, it became like 98% Democrat, right? And it's something I think we have. It was a legitimate reason after the Civil War, right? One, you had people who used to work on farms. A lot of them couldn't read and write, and they didn't know anything about politics. I mean, I remember reading Gone with the Wind, and Mammy, she would always say in the book, but not in the movie, I don't know nothing about this freedom. I don't want this freedom. I don't know nothing about this freedom, right? So you got people like that who just was awarded this great power of the franchise. Well, obviously they're going to go with the people who liberated them, right? But now, 2020, come on, man. Don't just.
But that's the individual choice.
Yeah, now it's an individual choice, man. Get educated and figure out what your politician can do for you, not necessarily your group. And you are more than just a color. Now, there's a lot to.
You just said it. You just said it right there. That's it.
That's it.
You are more than just a color in a mass of other people with similar skin color. You are an individual. You are free to think on your own, and that was my previous point, which is Kanye said it real janky, even though he's a great rapper, a great producer. He didn't say it as eloquently as this recently. He wasn't fired. They just let his contract run out, but he was saying it better than Kanye said it. And it was like, you do not owe a political party any allegiance when they don't line up with what you believe. That was it.
That's it, man. And if you like, I can understand, like, if you're 18 years old, you got the power of the franchise to vote, and you haven't accomplished much. And all your life you've been hearing how, you know, you get this, you're born in this stream or this torrent of black victimization, and you got these race hustlers that attach themselves to a certain party, and they're out there saying, hey, vote for us and we'll protect you because you are nothing but a victim. All they see you as is a victim. You grow up in a society that you turn on the TV, you read, you know, publications every 5 seconds. A person who looks like you or from your culture is being victimized. You just feel that's all you're about. But if you get a little older and you accomplish some things, I don't care what it is. You don't have to be an astronaut or whatever. Accomplish graduating from high school. Accomplish reading a thick book. Accomplish starting a business. Accomplish winning Teacher of the Year award. Accomplish opening up your own, auto parts shop or your own bar. That's who you are. What you accomplish is who you are. So if you are a small business owner, you need a politician to represent you as a small business owner. And the fact that you're black is cream on the top, cream on top of that.
I don't even think it's cream on the top. It's so secondary. It's the
Yeah.
money first, and the way it's preached at you is it's your race, it's your gender, it's your sexual orientation. It's that money and power, M and P in the alphabet. Money and power. And once you read enough and experience enough, you'll see it's about money and power. And they'll tell you anything if you just believe in, well, how somebody looks or how somebody's dressed or their hair color, their eye color, their sexual orientation. Man, it's a power structure, period. Regardless of what nation it is, there's a power structure there, and you have to understand what the game is within that power structure. And I think that's what you're saying, Dre. It's a power structure, and you got to understand that, and you could be successful regardless of how you obviously look or something like this. It's what you think about that makes you, a movable force within the society.
Right. And again, as we wrap this up, the takeaways are that we are not saying being African American is not important, or that your skin color or your history, your family history is just not important at all. What we're saying is it's not 100% of who you are. Who you are is what you do, what the decisions you make, the choices you make, good or bad, right? If you try and start a business and you fail, okay, try it again.
Start again.
start again.
Learn from.
You
had light bulbs if Edison didn't fail 7,000 times to come up with the filament.
Exactly.
Start again.
And you ain't got to be a white person to be successful. You don't have to be white to study in school to get all A's, right? Like me and Leo talk about it all the time. When we were in school, there was no Klansmen outside talking about, hey, don't you dare go to school. How dare you read the algebra book? What? Were you trying to read? You trying to physics?
All this reading stuff.
Come on, man.
You better not go to Japan and learn how to speak no languages.
Exactly. Now, who was saying that? Big perm, big worm. You can't do nothing because, white man is holding you back, blah, blah, blah. No, forget that. You better than that. Everybody, I don't care who you are. If you white and you poor and your parents got hooked on what's the thing? Not opium.
Opioids
or whatever, man. Look, pray for them, dig your heels in, get a goal, and say, I'm going to do it, and I dare somebody to try and stop me, right?
And we got to flip that black. Just because your parents was on crack don't mean you got to follow that route. You can come out of that, man. You not have to volunteer your life for that, man, if it's not the right thing.
And when you look
make your decision.
And when you're looking at somebody driving, when you at that bus stop and you looking at somebody driving that Mercedes, blasting their music, seeing how happy they are, and you sitting at the bus stop pissed off, man, your life don't end at the bus stop.
Amen.
Keep going, man. You can get off the bus stop and just, one day get that Mercedes too, and you can encourage other people to get a Mercedes. Now, this is coming from a guy whose tags is the broke capitalist. Right, so that's where I'm coming from. Right? The broke capitalist. I believe in capitalism. And I believe that everybody can achieve what they want to. Everybody will have hiccups. Everybody will have hurdles to get over. But don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something because somebody else is out there trying to stop you, or some system is out there trying to stop you. Destroy the system. Just don't destroy capitalism, all right? Don't destroy capitalism.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
There's a couple brothers that believe in capitalism, and they walking around here with a head full of Japanese ping-ponging around.
Right.
And no one told you that you couldn't study it, and they never told me, so we just did it.
Yeah,
So
man. I mean, so you could do it. We kind of got off script here as usual. This is just how we do it.
no, but it applies. It
It
applies.
applies.
You
It
you
does
on point.
apply. It does apply. So just that was a little last 15 minutes was a bit of encouragement for all black, white, Asian, Latino, gay, straight, whatever. Take advantage of the advantages this country still has to offer while while it's still around.
Kill the country.
You know, don't let these Antifa people try and get you to think that capitalism is dead, is no good. Now, read. And that thing I told you I discovered, those books, they're great things. With
You
that,
say you describing books like they prehistoric
right.
bones.
Man, before
in
I
the
discovered the book,
Mesozoic
man,
era.
I was walking around thinking the earth was flat. And, you know, every time I got in a boat, I was scared I'd fall off the earth or whatever, man. Books are great. And for all those living in, you know, kind of crime-ridden areas for whatever reason, that could be poor white neighborhoods, the barrio, the hood. If you got money you want to hide, put it in a book. And with that,
Nobody will ever get to it. You said you got money you want to hide, put it in a book.
put it in a book,
Nobody
man.
will ever
Ain't
look there.
ain't no thief looking in no books, man. All right.
something.
With that, man, we gonna sign off until next time. Hope you enjoyed it. If you got something out of this, please like, share, subscribe, and like, share, and subscribe. And I'll put a link in the description of an organization who's currently fighting a good fight against modern day slavery, involuntary servitude. So you can do more than just talk about something that didn't happen to you and happened to somebody else a long time ago. You can actually help someone in need right now. And with that said, have a great day, have a great week, and see you next time. Peace.